Peace, you guys. Welcome back to Unshakable with April Chapman, where we discuss all things social, cultural, political, and theological from a biblical perspective. I'm your host, April Chapman, and welcome to today's show. So today, you guys, I want to talk about New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Y'all, he's got a new little housing plan, and y'all, it's so cute. His housing plan is cute because at this point, y'all, this man, he's not even hiding the ball anymore, okay? He's just standing in broad daylight under government lighting, right, with taxpayer-funded microphones, and he has announced that, yeah, we're coming for your property, your private property, that is. And so the media and the activists, the nonprofits, all of them are going to dress up his new housing plan. They're going to dress it up as, isn't he so compassionate? This is just full of justice and equity. And finally, someone that's fighting for the little guy. And then the rest of us, you know, those of us out here with functioning brain cells, yeah, we're sitting out here. We're like, y'all Negroes can't see this for what this is. Y'all are communists. A communist government-backed property grab is literally what Zohran Mamdani is proposing. So I want to play a clip to give you guys some context. So go ahead and take a listen to this.
Through our new citywide campaign, Fix the City, we will focus on the worst landlords in New York City. When necessary, we will take aggressive legal action to remove negligent owners and property managers. And for buildings that have suffered chronic neglect, we will work to transfer ownership to responsible stewards. Stewards that include community land trusts, nonprofits, or even the tenants themselves.
Y'all, you guys, this is bigger than rent, okay? This is bigger than the rent, than the landlords. This is about power. That's what it's always about for the communists and the socialists. I need you to listen very carefully to the language. Not all of the emotional packaging that it's put in, not the, we're going to help the tenants, or because we care about the little people. No, listen to the mechanism. Did you hear it? This man said he's going to remove negligent owners. I'm like, so how are you going to lawfully remove negligent owners unless by way of government seizure, you're going to take their property because you think they're being negligent? Like, who sets this standard? Then he says, we're going to transfer ownership, and we're going to transfer this ownership to responsible stewards. I said, oh, now that sounds sweet now, doesn't it? But with you guys, y'all need me to translate this. I got to translate this from socialist sweet talk into plain English. Y'all ready for it? Here it go. The city is essentially saying we are going to use government power to target private property owners, build a whole legal case against them, and then move their property into the hands of these politically approved organizations. Like I said, who sets the standard? What is going to be considered negligent? Is it that the wiring panel needs to be replaced, or you don't have GFCI outlets near water sources? Like, there's so many different ways that this can be defined. But this is the whole ball game. It's the entire cake, the frosting, the plate, the napkin, and the plastic fork. These people are not simply talking about, oh, you need to fix the broken boiler. No, this is not simply about making sure the tenants have heat. Everybody agrees that if you have truly negligent landlords, they should absolutely be held accountable. I'm from New York. I am quite familiar with the whole slumlord lifestyle. I get it. If landlords are refusing to provide basic services, and if they're okay with just letting people live with mold and cockroach infestations and broken elevators and no heat and dangerous conditions, I get that. There should absolutely be consequences for that. So hear me clearly. I'm not defending the slumlords. However, I want people to be sober-minded about this. This is a warning about socialists using slumlords as the excuse to destroy private property. That's what this is. Because listen, the left always finds the worst example, and then they'll use that example to punish everybody else. They'll go ahead and find them one bad landlord. And trust me, they do exist. But then suddenly, every landlord is a villain. They'll start advocating for tenants' rights, right? They'll find one greedy corporation, and then suddenly capitalism is the evil one, right? This is how it works. They'll find, like, for example, government overreach. Whenever they want to enact something, let's say in the case of parental rights, they'll find one irresponsible parent, and then suddenly, the state needs to raise your children because they know what's best. They find one injustice, and then suddenly they need unlimited power. That is the pattern. They have a whole progressive playbook political Ponzi scheme that's been codified, and they're just following the manual. So let's understand what's really happening here. Because y'all know the left, they never just come to you honestly and say, hey, I'm here to take your property and centralize power. And we're going to empower the activist networks and use government bureaucracy to kind of reorient and reorder society according to our ideological fantasies. They never come out and say that. They always come to you with a sob story. They break out the little baby violin. And then they come to you, with a victim, come to you with a crisis. They come to you with a child or a tenant or a struggling single mama or a struggling worker, anyone from the marginalized community that waves a rainbow flag and a whole camera crew to follow. And then they'll say, because these people are suffering, we need to step in and do more. So we're going to need more power. Every single time. It never fails. The suffering may be real. Hear me clearly. I'm not saying it's not. The hardship may be real. Hear me clearly. I'm not saying it's not. There may be a legitimate crisis, but the solution is always the same. Give the government more control. Give the activist class more authority. Make sure the nonprofits stay fully funded and give the bureaucrats more power. At the end of the day, who ends up with the short end of the stick? The private citizens. We're the ones that end up with fewer rights, but that is the trick. And Christians need to just stop falling for it. Okay, this is manipulation that eventually it's going to morph into tyranny. We've seen this happen time and time again throughout history, y'all. Communism always swoops in to punish lawful ownership. They want to demonize anyone that's being productive, reward chaos, and just transfer wealth to their ideological allies. But see, we need to talk about, this is one particular word that Mamdani used, right? He called it, what was it? Responsible stewards. Okay, y'all, these darn communists, they are real Weasley with their words. I mean, it sounds biblical now, doesn't it? Responsible stewards. Stewardship. It creates this imagery of responsibility and community and people who really care about you, except socialists they love borrowing Christian language, but they reject Christian definitions that are rooted and grounded in truth. So they'll use words like justice and stewardship and, compassion and love thy neighbor. And we should provide dignity and respect and love to all. But these words are empty for them because they're empty of their biblical meanings, and they are repackaged with Marxist ideology. I am listen, if we're going to examine this biblically, stewardship means that you are managing what God has entrusted to you. So it assumes accountability, responsibility, ownership under God's authority. But in a socialist paradigm, in their languaging, their lexicon, stewardship means you own it until the government decides that someone else deserves it more than you do. It is theft. It is theft. You're not supposed to steal, period. And yes, governments can enforce legitimate laws. I'm not advocating for that. Government should punish fraud and penalize dangerous neglect. But when the government starts creating a system where private ownership is politically targeted and legally pressured and financially strangled and then transferred to whatever the government approved entities are, you're no longer a public servant. This is state sponsored intimidation. This is why I call these deacons of dependency custodians of chaos. Because what they're trying to do is build their own little real estate portfolio and empire, one seized building at a time. That's what they want. They want us to clap. Like, if you look at that press conference, y'all see all of I'm sorry, all the black ignorant standing behind him. Yeah, that was purposeful. The optics matter. All of those people, some of which probably have lived in government housing their whole life, they don't want to work. They don't have a healthy doctrine of work. They've been trained in Marxist ideology their whole life. And so they are celebrating the idea that affordable housing is going to come by way of government seizure of neglected properties, and then they're going to have their little house on a hill at the government's expense. That is not how this is going to happen. Okay, listen. Those people behind Mamdani, they may be clapping because they heard him use the word community. But honey, listen, the mafia has community too. Okay, that doesn't make it righteous. The part that I really want you to pay attention to is that he didn't just say that the city would fix the buildings. Right? He didn't just said that out of it like, maybe, maybe not. He didn't just say that the city would enforce the law. This man said ownership could be transferred. Ownership to community land trusts, nonprofits, or maybe even tenants. That nonprofit part is so important because the modern left-wing nonprofit, they're not just charities. They're political organizing machines. Let's look at Stacey Abrams' little pipeline that she had down here in Georgia. It is an ideological laundromat. The money goes in as community investment, and out comes political power smelling like the latest fragrance of Gain detergent. Okay, listen, these groups, they don't just provide services, okay? They shape whole narratives and train organizers, put pressure on the politicians to mobilize voters, and they're up to the wazoo in lawsuits. These people are the ones influencing policy. So now imagine giving these groups access to real estate assets in New York City. Are you crazy? Not just grant money and donations or taxpayer funded contracts, actual buildings, property, land. I'm talking hard assets. Y'all, that changes the game. These socialists are not stupid. Remember, they want you to live like a socialist, but they function and think like capitalists. Real estate and land is power, and control over housing is power too. So if you can control where people live, you can then influence how people vote, what people fear, what people depend on, and who people believe in as their savior. This is why it matters. So I'm always telling y'all, the government's not God. They want you to believe that they're just simply out here helping Miss Johnson get her heat fixed by February. Again, okay, fix the heat then. Punish the negligence and protect the tenants from actual abuse. But no, that's not what this is. All they're doing is using these tenants as human shields for a socialist land grab. Do not use the poor as props while building your own political machine. But this is what the left does. They don't liberate the poor. They manage the poor. That's why they're crashing out all these majority black districts. Yeah, they just want to manage the plantation. They don't want to free the slaves on the plantation. They organize the poor, manage them, subsidize them, harvest more poor people, and then they march those same poor people straight to the ballot box and tell them, you get to vote for us. Because if you don't vote for us, those bad people, they're going to take your benefits. Plantation politics. Jerome Crow in blackface. Now, as you know, I'm from New York. Okay, so trust me. Look, I have plenty of experience of what it's like living under government-run housing in New York City. Listen, let me tell you something. The government sucks at housing. They suck at a lot of things, but they really suck at housing. I mean, it's called the projects, okay? Listening to a communist praise itself on its plan for government-controlled housing is laughable to me, okay? It's almost like the jokes are writing themselves because, listen, if the government is so wonderful at housing, riddle me this, Batman. Why is New York City Housing Authority such a disaster? Y'all ever been to the projects in New York? Listen, Mamdani's own plan acknowledges that they have a need for massive investment in the New York City Housing Authority. Okay, I'm talking like billions. Last time I checked, it was $5.6 billion needed over 5 years for renovations in the public housing projects in New York City. So let me get this straight. The government has already acknowledged that they have a massive public housing system that has been plagued for decades by neglect. But the solution is you need to give the government more power over more housing when the government is part of the slumlord landlord problem that you claim you're trying to fix. Okay, look, maybe I'm just a C student and I'm black and I'm slow. But that's like hiring a man, he a known arsonist. And you say to him, you know what? And we know you be burning stuff up, but we want you to be the fire marshal. Okay, we know you ain't done nothing but burn down buildings and you are absolutely good at it. But now we want to give you the keys to the whole block so you can burn down some more. Like, somebody make it make sense to me. If New York City Housing Authority residents, they've been suffering under government managed housing failures, then why should anyone believe that the answer is more government control? So y'all gonna regulate the landlords who are what, worse landlords than you, or on an equal playing field of being slumlords like you are? If you've ever been inside a New York City housing project, I mean, y'all, you are in for a real treat. I mean, the pissy elevator, all the boo-boo that's slapped upside the walls, the sexual assault. I mean, you fear for your life walking through the projects because you're hoping, I hope I don't get robbed or raped. Just saying. But this is what socialism does. All it does is fail. It fails and then it blames capitalism as the problem and then demands more money.
The chronic victim can never be trusted, says Carl Jung.
Because I want you to know that I am more offended as an African American woman than you will ever be.
The chronic victim can never be trusted.
The reason we could never be who we wanted and dreamed to be in is you kept your knee on our neck. We could run corporations and not hustle in the street, but you had your knee on our neck. We had creative skills. We could do whatever anybody else could do, but we couldn't get your knee off our neck.
The chronic victim can never be trusted.
It's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps.
Stay on your knees. Stay on the plantation, boy. I've decided to be a free man. Slave is a choice.
Other people's money and power, because they want more power to fix the actual failures that it created. And then it fails again. And then somehow racism is to blame. And the billionaires and the landlords, and it's everybody's fault. Republicans, climate change, it's the win. Colonialism, white supremacy, the patriarchy, the plastic straws. Probably it's always somebody else's fault, right? It's to the point now they're out here blaming Meemaw's gas stove that didn't do nothing to nobody. It should sit over there old and functioning, but that's the problem too. It is never their ideology or their bad ideas to blame. it is always somebody else's fault. Always. Never the activists or the city planners who don't know what they're doing, or the city council that just keeps approving more spending on the wrong things. It's always somebody else. This is why socialism never dies. It just keeps metamorphosizing and changing outfits. One day it's wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt. The next day it's a Ugandan-born Muslim wearing a blazer and calling his plan affordable housing. Interstage right, Zohran Mamdani. So listen, I just wanted to report on this because yes, there are real problems in New York City. Okay, you have real tenants who are suffering and you have some really bad landlords out there. Everybody knows there is a real affordability crisis in New York City. No one is denying that. But the left solution, why is it always control? Control the rent, control the landlord, the zoning, the building, the nonprofits, all just control everything. They want to control the funding, the courts, the narrative, control, and more control. They are the party of authoritarianism, but they claim that this is liberation. Right? So not only do they want to control your stuff, but they want to take from one group and give to another. This is nothing but economic envy, and it is frowned upon, and it's not justice. This is why I'm always saying the government is not God. It's not. So, at the end of the day, they want to transfer ownership to responsible stewards and attempt in their moral arrogance to make you think that they are really fighting for you. But they're not. Here's what this means for you. I know a lot of y'all are like, look, I ain't from New York. What does this have to do with me? I get that. Good for you. But don't get comfortable. Why? All bad ideas, they don't just stay localized in New York. They migrate, they relocate, they get replicated, and they rinse and repeat by liberals who move to where you live, and then they bring their trash policies with them. They show up with all their student loan debt, taking advantage of the lower cost of living where you live, and then they start voting for the very policies that destroyed the part of the country where they came from. I'm telling you, New York is often the laboratory. It's the test case. And then before you know it, the local city councils all across America become carbon copies of the trash outcomes right there in the city where it originated. So if this model works politically up in New York, you're going to see it everywhere. These activists are going to start demanding the same thing, and they're going to rinse and repeat it. So I'm curious to know, what do you think? When you listened to Zohran Mamdani introduce his tenant affordability plan, did it really sound like he was trying to make housing more affordable, or does this sound like what it sounded like is a land grab by socialists? They trying to seize up assets and real estate, which is it's pretty bold power move, but at least they're saying the quiet part out loud, right? They're showing us their hand, so we know exactly what the next move is. But I do want to hear from you. What do you think? And I want you to leave me your comments down in the box below. And until next time, you guys, stand firm, stay bold, and above all else, stay unshakable. Grace and